In an apocalypse, your awakened skill dictates your worth. Ren got A rank indestructible shield. Jane got B rank hellfire. I got a red and white checkered picnic mat. My skill was F rank picnic. Once a day, it spawned exactly 3 plain rice balls. No buffs, no healing, just dry rice. It had a 24-hour cooldown hard-coded into its logic loop. And tonight, that hard limit was going to kill me. 6 starving people. 3 rice balls. A barricade that was about to break. I saw Ren look at Jane. I saw the cold, brutal arithmetic flash in his eyes. I was a support class on a 24-hour cooldown. To them, my utility had just reached 0. The glass shattered. The horde breached the perimeter. It was time to fight or run. Ren chose to run. But you can't outrun a horde unless they're eating something else. He grabbed me by the collar. Sorry Harvey, the cooldown is too long. We need a distraction. He threw me directly into the jaws of the undead. They didn't even look back. 5 heroes sprinting down the hallway while I was buried under a mountain of rotting teeth and claws. It wasn't sad. It was just incredibly, infuriatingly annoying. I wasn't feeling despair. I was feeling an overwhelming, all-consuming sense of pettiness. They used me as a meat shield. If I survived this, I was going to bill them for emotional damages at a 10,000% interest rate. I refused to die as a consumable item. The system's logic engine responds to extreme emotional thresholds. Apparently, my sheer, unadulterated spite triggered a hidden evolution condition. The picnic mat didn't just level up. It completely glitched the back-end architecture. The mat folded into a dimensional tear, shaping itself into a literal glass convenience store door right in the middle of the apocalypse. I didn't ask questions. I dove through the glass right before a zombie bit my ankle. I rolled onto cheap linoleum. A bell chimed. It wasn't a grand, magical armory. It was a dingy, cramped, level 1 convenience store that smelled faintly of floor wax. But the heavy glass door locked behind me, and the zombies outside were entirely unable to break in. It was an absolute safe zone. I approached the only shelf with actual stock. 1 questionable-looking hot dog and a melon pan. But when I looked closer, my new interface populated a data overlay that made my heart skip a beat. This wasn't just food anymore. I took a bite of the hot dog. It tasted like processed meat and preservatives, but the moment I swallowed, a rush of pure magical adrenaline flooded my veins. A permanent +5 strength buff. People grinded for months in A-rank dungeons to get stat boosts like that. I got it from a gas station snack. I ate the melon pan. +5 agility. Permanent. My pathetic support class hadn't just evolved, it had broken the fundamental economy of the system. If I could sell this, no, if I could control who buys this, I could rule the entire apocalypse. The revenge plan practically wrote itself. But every broken mechanic has a limiter. I reached for more, only to hit a digital paywall. The store was level 1. It only spawned 2 items a day, bounded by the exact same 24-hour cooldown logic as my old picnic mat. I cursed the developer who balanced this system. Then I read the fine print. Bypass cooldown, deposit 10 zombie cores. The cooldown was just a suggestion if you had the capital. I grabbed a mop from the janitor's closet. The zombies outside weren't a threat anymore. They were currency. And business was officially open. The system designated the interior of my store as an absolute safe zone. The zombies could pound on the glass until their limbs fell off, but the dimensional barrier wouldn't even smudge. It was the perfect environment for a coward's crusade. In video games, this is called cheesing the boss. I cracked the door open exactly 2 inches, just wide enough for a zombie to jam its head in, but not wide enough for it to reach me. Then, I casually poked it in the brain with a broken mop handle. No risk, high reward. When the zombie dissolved into ash, I used a pair of aluminum barbecue tongs from the staff room to safely retrieve the loot. I felt like I was operating a highly lucrative, incredibly disgusting claw machine. It took an hour of tedious poking, but I finally harvested 10 cores. I didn't absorb them for stats like a normal hunter. I tossed them straight into the cash register. The store's back-end system devoured the currency instantly. The spatial dimensions of the room physically stretched. The linoleum duplicated itself. My dingy corner store upgraded to level 2. The 24-hour cooldown timer on the wall shattered, resetting to 0. But more importantly, I unlocked new inventory. Beautiful, glorious inventory. The store now stocked 3 cups of instant ramen and 3 energy drinks daily. But these weren't permanent stat boosts like the glitch dog. They were temporary, high-potency combat buffs. The perfect consumable product to build a recurring customer base. Meanwhile, the elite party that sacrificed me was discovering the reality of a logistics-free apocalypse. You can't block starvation with an A-rank shield, and you can't cast a fireball on an empty stomach. Without my meager 3 rice balls a day, their party cohesion shattered immediately. The healer blamed the tank. The tank blamed the scout. They threw me away because my cooldown was an inconvenience, completely failing to realize I was the only thing keeping them from starving. Back at the store, business was about to pick up. I heard frantic footsteps in the hallway. A low-rank swordswoman was running for her life from a mutated hound. She was bleeding out, completely out of stamina, and seconds away from a gruesome death. I watched her get cornered against my glass door. The old Harvey would have panicked and tried to save her out of the goodness of his heart. The new Harvey did a rapid cost-benefit analysis. She was weak, but desperation breeds incredibly loyal customers. I yanked her inside and slammed the door right on the hound's snout. The safe zone barrier immediately rejected the monster, sending it tumbling backward into the hallway. She lay on my linoleum, bleeding out, staring at me like I was a descending angel. I smiled down at her with all the warmth of a predatory loan shark. I held up a steaming cup of iron skin noodles and a digital contract. I offered her a simple deal. 1 cup of magic noodles to save her life, in exchange for 50% of all her future monster drops and a binding exclusivity clause. A complete scam. She smashed the agree button before I even finished explaining the terms. She inhaled the broth. Immediately, the iron skin buff activated. Her bleeding stopped. Her tissue hardened. She looked at her hands like she had just touched the face of God. I looked at her like a farmer looks at a highly productive cash cow. She was fully healed and buffed with 20% extra physical defense. I slid a blue employee vest across the counter. "Welcome to Harvey's Mart," I said. "Your shift starts now. Go farm that hound for my inventory." I finally had an employee. My store was a dimensional anomaly. From the inside, it looked like a normal building with a window facing the apocalypse. But from the outside, it was literally just a freestanding glass door standing in the middle of the rubble. It completely broke the laws of physics, which meant no property taxes. I held the door for my new employee. "Remember, Elara," I said, "don't damage the core. And try to look professional, you're representing the brand." She nodded with absolute, terrifying loyalty and stepped out to face the mutant hound. The hound bit her. The iron skin noodles did their job. Instead of tearing flesh, the monster's teeth shattered against a localized, high-density physical barrier. Elara realized she was basically invincible for the next hour. I saw the exact moment she fell in love with corporate benefits. I pulled up a lawn chair and opened a bag of system-generated butter popcorn. Watching someone else do manual labor while I harvested the profit was the most profound spiritual awakening of my life. Passive income is a beautiful thing. 10 seconds later, the hound was ash, and Elara was holding a massive silver E-rank core. A single E rank was worth 100 F ranks. My first employee had already paid for her own signing bonus. She stepped back through the freestanding door. To anyone outside, it looked like she vanished into a cartoon portal. Inside, she handed me the core like a proud dog dropping a newspaper at my feet. Right on cue, my favorite people in the world rounded the corner. Ren and the rest of the traders. They looked exactly how I hoped they would, absolutely pathetic, starving, and miserable. Ren stopped dead in his tracks. He pointed at my freestanding door. From their perspective, it was just a locked glass door with a neon sign hovering over it. No walls. No store. Just a glowing oasis in the middle of hell. They sprinted toward it like starving animals. Ren grabbed the handle and yanked. Nothing happened. The spatial lock didn't budge an inch. The system automatically scanned their biometric data, cross-referenced my blacklist, and politely informed them they were banned. The best part of spatial magic. The glass was completely one way. They couldn't see me. But I could see them. I dragged my lawn chair right up to the glass, inches from Ren's desperate face, and cracked open a deluxe Wagyu bento box. I pressed my face against the glass. I chewed a premium cut of Wagyu beef right in front of him, making the most hideous, spiteful, mocking faces imaginable. It was the most emotionally fulfilling meal I have ever eaten in my entire life. Jane lost her temper. She tried to blast the door with a B-rank fireball. The safe zone barrier absorbed the magic, converted it into static electricity, and blew a puff of soot right back into her arrogant face. I literally fell out of my chair laughing. Leo and Sam actually dropped to their knees in the mud and started begging the door to open. They were crying, scratching at the glass like stray cats. Ren was kicking rocks in a tantrum. This was infinitely better than a movie theater. Then, the absolute unthinkable happened. The system flashed a golden prompt. Achievement unlocked, Schadenfreude. It actually paid me 50 system coins because my spite was so highly concentrated it registered as entertainment value. I could literally monetize their misery. Elara asked if we should go out and kill them. I handed her a box of popcorn. Are you kidding? I said. They just became our most profitable, self-sustaining revenue stream. Sit back, employee. The show is just getting started. My new employee and I were enjoying a front-row seat to the consequences of my ex-party's actions. It was like watching a nature documentary, except the animals were the people who threw me into a zombie horde. Unfortunately, all their pathetic wailing and crying in the mud attracted some unwanted attention. My store's proximity radar flashed a massive red warning. A B-rank boss was entering the block. A B-rank sludge troll. Normally, a fully fed, heavily armed party could take it down with some effort. But my ex-party was starving, out of mana, and running on exactly 0 sleep. To the troll, they weren't hunters. They were a 5-course meal. They backed up right against the invisible spatial wall of my store. Jane was completely out of mana. Derek could barely lift his own armor. Ren was pounding on the glass, begging whatever god owned this oasis to let them in. I had 50 Schadenfreude coins burning a hole in my digital pocket. I wasn't going to let them inside my sanctuary, but it would be a waste of perfectly good customers to let them get eaten. I opened the upgrade menu and made a strategic infrastructure investment. With a flash of golden light, the spatial barrier morphed. Right next to the locked front doors, a sliding, bulletproof takeout window materialized out of thin air. It even had a little metal transaction tray. I slid the window open. The cold, putrid air of the apocalypse rushed in, but I didn't care. I stuck my head out, flashed the most terrifyingly smug, capitalist grin my facial muscles could physically produce, and looked down at my former party leader. Ren looked up. Jane looked up. Their brains completely stalled out. They thought they had thrown me into a meat grinder. Instead, I was wearing a clean uniform, looking down at them from an invincible fortress. I didn't give them time to process the shock. "Welcome to Harvey's Takeout," I said, completely ignoring the massive troll roaring behind them. "You look like you're in a hurry. May I interest you in a premium survival cracker?" I held up the lowest tier item I could legally spawn from the back end. A stale glitch cracker. It provided a massive burst of speed, but only lasted 10 seconds. Just long enough for them to run away. The price? Literally everything they were wearing. Ren's pride physically shattered. He could refuse, keep his dignity, and get digested by a mutant troll. Or he could surrender his multi-million-dollar armor for a single stale cracker. It wasn't a negotiation. It was extortion. They stripped faster than I've ever seen humans move. Silver chest plates, enchanted staves, magical robes, all of it hurled through my takeout window in a desperate panic. I calmly handed each of them a single, dry cracker. They swallowed the crackers. The speed buff hit their systems instantly. The elite hunter party sprinted off into the apocalyptic night wearing absolutely nothing but their underwear, moving at Mach 2. The troll didn't even try to chase them. I slid the takeout window shut and locked it. Elara stared at the massive mountain of high-tier magical gear now stinking up my clean linoleum floor. I had just acquired 10 million credits worth of inventory in exchange for 5 stale crackers. I put Ren's oversized, arrogant silver helmet on my head. It smelled like mud and desperation. The sheer value of the looted items triggered an automatic net worth upgrade threshold on the store's backend. Level 3 was here, and business was booming. Level 3 was a massive leap in infrastructure. The floor space tripled. I unlocked a magical microwave, a system recycling bin, and my magnum opus, a freestanding, neon-lit gacha machine deployed right outside my front door. It was time to introduce predatory monetization to the apocalypse. First order of business, liquidating the trader's assets. I dropped Ren's priceless, enchanted silver armor into the system recycling bin. The machine instantly melted it down into pure store credits. Turning his pride into my digital currency felt better than a permanent stat buff. The only problem was the B-rank sludge troll currently licking my front window. The safe zone barrier held, but the banging was giving me a headache. I turned to my employee. "Elara, we have a noise complaint. Eat this and take out the trash." The level 3 stock included premium consumables. The atomic sour gummy granted a temporary 1000% increase to attack power. For 60 seconds, my minimum wage cashier was mathematically equivalent to a god of destruction. Elara stepped outside and delivered a standard right hook. The kinetic force of 1000% multiplier hit the troll like a tactical nuke. It didn't just die, it was violently erased from the physical plane. As the dust cleared, we realized we had an audience. The Golden Dawn Guild. They were a massive, top-tier organization tracking the boss. Instead of a fight, their guild master, Vance, arrived just in time to watch a level 12 nobody in a blue vest vaporize his prey. Vance was a businessman. He immediately approached Elara, offering her a senior position in the Golden Dawn, promising millions in salary. Elara proudly tapped the name tag on her blue vest and informed him she already had dental coverage at Harvey's Mart. Confused, Vance and his elite squad looked past her. That's when they saw it. Standing defiantly in the apocalyptic rubble was a pristine, neon-lit gacha machine, flashing invitingly right next to my spatial door. I slid the takeout window open and unleashed my most welcoming, utterly predatory retail smile. "Gentlemen," I said. "Forget recruiting her. Why don't you buy the power she just used? Step right up and test your luck." Vance was a whale. He had more cores than sense. Scoffing at the machine, he tossed a C-rank core into the slot just to prove it was a scam. The machine chimed a joyful arcade jingle that echoed through the dead city. Always rigged the first pull. It's Casino Economics 101. The machine spat out a golden SSR capsule. Vance drank the dragon's breath espresso inside and his mana instantly quintupled. His haughty demeanor vanished, replaced by the wild-eyed euphoria of a gambling addict. Once the golden light faded, the frenzy began. The rest of the Golden Dawn Guild lost their minds. They started shoving each other out of the way, dumping handfuls of high-tier cores into the slot, desperate to get their own SSR buffs. But the house always wins. The drop rate for an SSR was exactly 0.01%. After the first bait, the machine went cold. 10 minutes later, Vance was on his knees weeping, surrounded by 50 bottles of N-rank lukewarm tap water. He had spent his guild's entire operational budget. Inside the store, the digital register was overflowing. The influx of cores was so massive I had to hug the machine to keep them from spilling on the floor. My face was stuck in an agonizing, euphoric cramp of pure capitalist joy. Gacha was the greatest weapon ever invented. The Golden Dawn left completely bankrupt, but they bowed in reverence to the store as they left. They would be back to grind for more pulls. I pulled up a holographic map of the continent. One store was great. But a monopolized franchise of apocalyptic casinos? That was the endgame. Word travels fast in an apocalypse, especially when the Golden Dawn Guild spends all night bragging about their new stat buffs. By 8 a.m., my little corner store had a line of customers wrapping around 3 blocks of destroyed real estate. A line meant waiting, and waiting meant hunters weren't spending money. I needed to monetize their downtime. I opened the store's back-end architecture and spent a few coins to deploy the premium VIP outdoor seating area. It was literally just 4 cheap plastic lawn chairs and a faded umbrella I spawned from a digital catalog. But I attached a spatial meter to them. If you wanted to sit down and rest your legs in the apocalypse, it was going to cost you 1 D-rank core per minute. I severely underestimated the market demand for a safe place to sit. The elites of the city, men and women who could level buildings with a single spell, were throwing actual punches over the right to sit in a $10 plastic chair. While they fought over chairs, I tested my new level 3 appliance. The magical microwave. I took a toxic, worthless slime drop, put it in for 30 seconds on high, and the system's culinary alchemy restructured it into a pristine, glowing gourmet cheeseburger that granted plus 50 stamina. Meanwhile, the architects of my betrayal had hit a new, previously undiscovered layer of rock bottom. Having traded all their clothes for speedcrackers last night, they were now traversing the apocalypse wearing literal garbage bags. Ren, the great S-rank hero of humanity, was currently stalking a single dropped French fry. Vance had dropped it from his gourmet meal, and Ren was looking at that piece of fried potato like it was the Holy Grail. He lunged for it. But my VIP lounge was an extension of the store's property. The moment his trash bag-covered knee crossed the spatial boundary without paying the meter, the automated anti-theft turret deployed from the patio umbrella. The laser sight locked right onto the bridge of his nose. He froze. A shadow fell over him, blocking out the morning sun. I stepped out of the takeout window, looming over my former party leader like a debt collector from hell. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that makes small children cry and stock markets crash. Well, I said, tapping my digital calculator. Trespassing in a premium zone, attempted theft of intellectual property, and loitering. The fines are going to be astronomical. They begged. They cried. They offered to do anything if I just gave them a single burger. I told them I didn't run a charity. I slammed a glowing red digital contract into the dirt. An indentured servitude agreement with a 5 million coin debt. It was either sign the contract or get vaporized by the anti-theft turret. Ren wept openly as he pressed his thumb to the digital screen. Jane and the others followed. The heroes of the apocalypse just became my minimum wage kitchen staff. The system accepted the contract and teleported them directly into the back room. The system also automatically equipped them with the official trainee uniform, bright pink, frilly aprons. The great S-rank tank was now on pot-scrubbing duty. I appointed Alara as the shift supervisor. She took to middle management like a fish to water. Every time one of the traders slowed down, she poked them with a broom handle. It was poetry in motion. I had a line out the door, whales pumping money into my gacha machine, elites paying rent to sit in plastic chairs, and my betrayers washing my dishes for free. The apocalypse was terrible for humanity, but it was absolutely fantastic for my profit margins. By midday, my convenience store had effectively replaced the government. We had a booming economy, zero inflation, and a highly motivated workforce. Specifically, a workforce that was legally bound to wash my dishes until the end of time. Ren and the traders were hitting their daily quotas perfectly. Whenever Ren cried into the dishwater, Alara would fine him for contaminating the soap. It was a beautiful, self-sustaining ecosystem of suffering and profit. But in a capitalist utopia, there is always someone trying to regulate the free market. A massive explosion scattered my customers. The Blood Wolves had arrived. They were a notoriously violent dark guild that operated like a post-apocalyptic mafia. The guild master, a walking cliché named Kuro, marched right up to my takeout window. He slammed his sword down, ruining my pavement, and informed me that my store was now under Blood Wolf protection. 90%, Kuro snarled. You hand over 90% of your cores every sundown, or my boys kill every customer that tries to buy a soda. I stared at him. The very concept of taxes is deeply offensive to me. But a 90% tax. Something inside me snapped. A dark, primal, deeply capitalist fury ignited in my soul. Did this leather-wearing edgelord just try to touch my profit margins? Nobody taxes Harvey's mart. Nobody. I didn't argue. I didn't summon guards. I simply opened my administrative tablet. I had 10 million cores sitting in the bank from Vance's gacha addiction. It was time for a heavy infrastructure upgrade. 10 million cores vanished from my account. The street violently warped. A massive, U-shaped architectural structure manifested out of thin air, perfectly encircling Kuro and his entire gang. Welcome to the Level 4 upgrade, the express drive-through. Kuro panicked. He ordered his men to smash the store. But by standing inside the U-shaped lane, they had officially entered the store's mechanized service zone. And they hadn't paid the toll. The automated defense system activated. But it wasn't turrets this time. It was an industrial-grade, magical car wash. Massive spinning brushes dropped from the ceiling. High-pressure soap nozzles blasted them at Mach 3. The Blood Wolves were getting the deepest exfoliation of their lives. Step 2 of the wash, asset forfeiture. Massive industrial vacuums descended, latching onto their spiked armor, their weapons, and their wallets, sucking it all directly into my recycling bin. It was a perfectly automated mugging. 10 seconds later, the drive-thru spat them out the other side. The terrifying mafia guild was gone. In their place were 50 men in tight white underwear, their skin sparkling with a comical, squeaky clean gleam, completely traumatized by extreme hygiene. The system dumped the guild master right at my window. His spiky hair was flattened, smelling strongly of lavender. I slid a digital receipt across the counter. That'll be 5 million cores for the premium executive wash and wax, I smiled. From inside the kitchen, Ren and the traders watched the mafia boss get utterly humiliated. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of genuine camaraderie in Ren's eyes. The shared trauma of being scammed by a convenience store clerk transcends all boundaries. I hung a "now hiring" sign on the drive-thru. If Kuro couldn't pay his cleaning bill, I was going to need a second shift for the dish pit. The apocalypse was full of monsters, but they were all about to learn that capitalism is the apex predator. It was easy to forget the world ended when you were sipping magical lattes in a plastic chair. But the system doesn't like safe zones. At 2 p.m., a massive A-rank dungeon break shattered the sky right above my commercial district. The apocalypse had come to collect. In seconds, my thriving customer base was reduced to screaming prey. The Golden Dawn Guild tried to hold the line, but these weren't standard zombies. They were high-tier shadow beasts. The street was instantly painted in blood. Then the boss dropped in. An A-rank, blackout behemoth. It landed directly in my drive-through lane, completely ignoring the traffic flow arrows. Worse, it radiated a high-density EMP field that disrupted all localized magic. The behemoth roared, releasing an anti-magic shockwave. My automated defenses short-circuited. The car wash died. The turrets jammed. And then, the unthinkable happened. The shockwave hit my neon open sign, shattering it into a million pieces. Silence fell over the inside of the store. Ilara stopped breathing. Ren dropped a plate in the kitchen. They all looked at me. I wasn't just a merchant losing customers. I was a small business owner looking at thousands of coins in unprovoked property damage. I took off my employee vest and laid it gently on the counter. I rolled up my sleeves. The system's rules were simple: the inside of the store was a safe zone, but the outside was free game. I unlocked the front door. I stepped outside into the blood and ash. Vance saw me and screamed, "Get back inside, you idiot, you're an F-rank support class. You'll die instantly." The behemoth turned its 4 glowing eyes toward me, sensing easy prey. What the hunters didn't know is that my food had a shelf life. Every night at 11:59 p.m., the unsold stat buffing items expired and disappeared. Being a thrifty business owner, I refused to let inventory go to waste. I had been personally eating every single unsold +5 strength and +5 agility item for 6 months straight. The behemoth swung a fist the size of a minivan at my head. My agility stat was pushing 10,000. I didn't dodge, I simply existed somewhere else. The pavement shattered beneath my sneakers as I broke the sound barrier. I appeared level with its face. No magic. No enchanted swords. Just 9,999 points of raw, unadulterated, preservative-fueled muscle mass. I punched it in the jaw. The kinetic impact was so violent it created a vacuum. The multi-ton boss folded in half and launched backward like a skipping stone, crashing through 3 entire skyscrapers before burying itself in a mountain of rubble halfway across the city. The boss was dealt with, but the trash was still loitering. I grabbed a standard wooden push broom from the side of the store. With my stats, swinging a piece of wood generated hurricane force winds. I began to quite literally sweep the street clean. Inside the store, Ren watched me casually obliterate an entire dungeon break with a broom. The realization hit him. I wasn't just a merchant using safe zones. I was physically the strongest entity on the continent. The mental damage to his ego was absolute. I retrieved the A-rank core. It was easily worth 20 million credits. But I wasn't happy. I walked over to Guild Master Vance, who was currently shivering on the pavement in shock, and pointed aggressively at my shattered neon sign. I put my blue vest back on and addressed the traumatized, blood-soaked survivors. "We apologize for the brief interruption in service," I yelled, projecting my best customer service voice. "Harvey's Mart will reopen in exactly 5 minutes. Please form a single file line." After I swept the street clean with a wooden broom, the local atmosphere changed completely. Nobody complained about the prices anymore. Nobody tried to haggle. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high purely out of mortal terror. Then an official Hunter Association limousine pulled up. Chief Inspector Boris stepped out. The association didn't like unregulated commercial entities operating with god-tier physical strength. They sent their most ruthless auditor to shut me down. Boris marched up to my takeout window to deliver an eviction notice. I didn't let him speak. I slid the window open and hit him with my maximum voltage corporate smile, offering him a free sample of our stat-boosting mana smoothie. Boris ignored the smoothie. He started reading off violations. Unlicensed dimensional zoning, illegal gacha mechanics, hazard breaches. He was trying to levy a fine that would choke a dragon. I leaned over to Alara. If he fails us, we lose corporate tax exemptions, I whispered, my face contorting into an evil scheming grin. It's time to perform a mandatory customer satisfaction conversion. I invited him inside for a formal facility inspection. Boris ran a gloved finger along my shelves, looking for a single speck of dust. But my store had automated dimensional cleaning. The place was cleaner than a hospital operating room. We moved to the kitchen audit. Boris saw Ren scrubbing dishes at Mach 2 in his pink apron. The dishes were so clean they literally reflected light. Boris tried to find a labor code violation, but Ren's contract was 100% system certified. Just as Boris was about to sign the audit, a stray pack of 20 A-rank shadow wolves ambushed us from the rubble outside. They charged the front entrance, right where the inspector was standing. Boris reached for his sword, but the lead wolf was already mid-air, inches from his throat. The chief inspector was about to become an auditor casualty. I stepped in front of him. I reached out and caught the multi-ton shadow wolf by its nose in mid-air. I didn't even drop my coffee. I swung the wolf by its snout like a bat, using it to clear the entire pack in one clean stroke. They flew into the upper atmosphere, twinkling like stars in the evening sky. I caught Boris's monocle before it hit the ground and gently placed it back over his eye. Security is guaranteed at Harvey's Mart, I smiled, my face an inch from his. How are our ratings looking? His hand was shaking so hard he almost dropped his pen. He slammed the official stamp onto the datapad. A+ rating. Full tax-exempt status granted, he squeaked. Not only did we pass compliance, but Chief Inspector Boris bought 20 energy drinks on the association's expense account before speeding away in his limousine. Another corporate client secured. With official association certification and full tax exemption secured, there was nothing stopping us. I pulled up the continental map on my tablet. It was time to take Harvey's Mart nationwide and monopolize the entire apocalypse. A single store is just a small business. A multi-branch franchise is a corporate monopoly. With 15 million coins secured from Inspector Boris and Vance's Gacha addiction, it was time to deploy branch number 2. I promoted Alara to store manager of branch number 1. Her primary responsibility was keeping Ren and the rest of the dishwashers on strict 18-hour shifts while I went on a corporate expansion trip. Where is the best place to open a convenience store? Right where supply is zero and demand is life or death. I selected the Abyssal Chasm, an S-rank rift where elite hunters consistently died of starvation and exhaustion. I stepped into the franchise express pod. High-tier logistics meant instant spatial deployment straight to the target coordinates. The pod materialized miles underground inside the Abyssal Chasm. A fully formed, pristine, yellow and white branch number 2 unfolded right in the middle of a jagged crystal wasteland. I slid the door open and turned on our corporate radio station. Upbeat pop music began echoing through the terrifying, blood-soaked subterranean abyss. Nearby, Valerie, an S-rank solo hunter known as the Shadow Blade, was on her 3rd day without food. She had cleared 40 waves of monsters, but her mana was depleted and her stamina was at 0. Then, she heard cheap retail jingles echoing from around the corner. She rounded the corner, daggers raised, expecting a high-tier illusion boss. Instead, she found a brightly lit convenience store and a guy in a blue employee vest reading a comic book. "Welcome to Harvey's Express," I said cheerfully, pulling a cup of gourmet spicy seafood ramen from the hot display. The steam drifted directly toward her nose. Her S-rank dignity evaporated instantly. Branch number 2 carried S-rank exclusive stock. The Abyssal Seafood Noodles granted instant mana recovery plus a permanent plus 20 agility. The cost? 1 S-rank monster core. She didn't haggle. She slammed a glowing S-rank core onto the counter and snatched the noodles so fast her hand blurred. A core worth 50 million credits traded for a cup of noodles that cost me 3 cents to spawn. She inhaled the broth. The instant mana regen kicked in like a lightning strike. Her depleted stamina refilled, and her physical aura flared with enough power to split the cavern. She looked at the empty paper cup in sheer, reverent shock. "Give me everything on the menu," she demanded, dumping 5 more S-rank cores onto the glass. Just like that, the continent's most terrifying solo hunter became branch number 2's first whale. 300 million credits in net profit in under 10 minutes. S-rank dungeons were an absolute goldmine. High-risk zone real estate was officially my most profitable division. I offered Valerie a VIP loyalty pass in exchange for acting as branch number 2's security guard whenever she raided the chasm. She accepted instantly. With an S-rank bouncer securing the new location, I pulled up my tablet to plan branch number 3. The global expansion was moving right on schedule. Stationary stores are great, but they rely on foot traffic. If the customers are too trapped by monster hordes to walk to my store, I am losing valuable market share. Enter the level 5 upgrade, the Mobile Apocalypse Catering Unit. I forced Ren and the dishwashers to pack 3,000 magic burger patties into the truck's deep freezer. The plan was simple: drive straight into active war zones and deliver high-margin, life-saving fast food at a 300% surge pricing markup. I targeted Sector 4. A human defense force camp that had been surrounded by venom-spitting chimera beasts for 48 hours. They were completely cut off from supplies, exhausted, and about to be wiped out. I didn't bother using the road. The food truck was equipped with enchanted, ram-grade bumpers. I smashed through the wall, ran over a few monsters, and drifted into the center of the camp to the cheerful tune of an ice cream jingle. The battle stopped. Soldiers who were accepting their impending death stared at my yellow truck in absolute, brain-melting disbelief. Commander Drake dropped his empty rifle. The side shutter rolled up. I adjusted my chef's hat and leaned over the counter. "Good evening, Sector 4. Who's ready for a late-night combat meal?" Commander Drake rushed the window. He didn't ask how a catering truck got past the blockade. He just smelled sizzling beef and pointed a trembling, blood-caked finger at the grill. The Titan Stamina Burger granted a 200% health regen boost and multiplied physical impact by 5. It was literal combat medicine disguised as fast food. Price, 10 monster cores per combo. Drake dumped his entire squad's core reserve onto my counter. I started flipping burgers at superhuman speed, feeding 50 starving soldiers in under 3 minutes. They devoured the burgers. The health regen effect hit instantly. Wounds closed, broken bones knitted together, and their physical power surged 5-fold. A dying garrison was transformed into an army of enraged berserkers. Fueled by sodium, calories, and stat multipliers, the soldiers charged back out through the broken barricade. They didn't just defend, they pulverized the entire chimera horde in under 10 minutes. While they cleared the field, I extended the side awning and deployed an automated drive-through lane right on the battlefield. Victory tasted better with a side of large fries. 50 million credits in surge catering fees collected in a single night. Mobile retail was an unqualified success. Commander Drake signed a long-term catering contract on the spot. Harvey's Mart was now the exclusive, official ration supplier for Sector 4's defense force. I drove off into the sunrise, leaving behind a fully fed, overbuffed military base. One truck was just the beginning. It was time to build an entire fleet of mobile catering units and deliver fast food to every corner of the ruined world. High above the ruined city, the Sky Guard was losing an aerial war against S-rank storm wyverns. Operating at 10,000 feet meant zero supply lines, zero restocking, and immediate death if your stamina hit 0. Sky Captain Gerald looked at his empty mana vial. He was out of fuel, drifting in a thundercloud, with a 50-ton dragon closing in. He prepared to fall to his death. That was when level 6 kicked in. I spent 70 million credits to unlock the flying store module. A 3-story, anti-gravity convenience store tore through the cloud bank, deploying directly into the stratospheric warzone. I stepped out onto the open-air drive-through balcony wearing my aviator sunglasses. "Need a refill, Captain?" I called out, extending a long-handled net with an ice-cold, stat-boosting energy drink. I didn't just offer him a drink, I offered him the premium, black card subscription. For 1,000 cores a month, he got unlimited high-altitude refuels and 1,000% boost to flight speed. Gerald threw his core pouch into my net and grabbed the subscription card. He chugged the Sky Hyper caffeine right in front of the Wyvern's face. The speed buff hit his flight gear at Mach 5. He turned into a streak of blue lightning, dicing the S-rank Wyvern into neat little pieces before it could even blink. Seeing their captain turn into an aerial god, the entire squad flew over. Soon, I had a line of 20 flying hunters hovering patiently outside my 3rd-story balcony, eager to lock themselves into a monthly subscription. One-time sales are good, but recurring monthly subscriptions are the holy grail of capitalism. I had just turned an S-rank monster crisis into a predictable, monthly cash flow model. Of course, a flying store meant flying maintenance. I tethered Ren to a safety rope and sent him outside to clean the 3rd-story exterior windows at 10,000 feet. He wept continuously, which actually helped wash away the Wyvern blood. 500 million credits in monthly subscription fees locked in. The progress bar for buying Earth's planetary title deed jumped to 15%. The dream of evicting the apocalypse was getting closer. An alpha Wyvern tried to dive bomb the store's underbelly. Our automated, undercarriage espresso cannons blasted it with 200-degree magical roast, sending it crashing to the earth below. Gerald and his squad escorted the flying store through the upper atmosphere, saluting our balcony as they flew by. We weren't just a store anymore, we were an indispensable tactical sky fortress. From 10,000 feet, we could launch automated delivery drones anywhere on the continent in under 10 minutes. Ground-level logistics were officially obsolete. I stood at the panoramic window of my floating store, sipping an iced latte while looking down at the ruined earth. I had ground stores, drive-thrus, mobile food trucks, and now an airborne skymart. The apocalypse thought it was ending humanity, but it was really just creating the ultimate retail empire. Deep beneath the earth, in the untouched depths of S-rank dungeons, hunters were dying in pitch-black darkness. No delivery drone could penetrate 5 miles of solid stone, which meant an entire market segment was left completely unexploited. Guild Master Vane and his elite squad were down to their last breath on floor 90. 0 health potions. 0 mana. 1 minute away from a total wipe. Enter level 7, the microvending outpost. Bypassing dimensional depth restrictions, I dropped an indestructible, automated vending machine directly into the boss chamber via spatial deployment. The skeletal dragon stopped mid-swing. Vane's jaw dropped beneath his helm. In the middle of an ancient, terrifying dragon lair stood a brightly lit, hummable vending machine playing a cheerful retail chime. The machine was fully stocked with emergency high-tier consumables. Elixirs of instant regen, mana canisters, and stat-buffing chips, all operating on an automated cash or core payment slot. Vane didn't care about the absurd physics. He crawled on his knees, jammed a glowing S-rank core into the slot, and slammed the button for the instant health elixir. A soft clunk echoed. The potion dropped into the tray. Vane chugged it down, and a pillar of crimson magic burst around him, completely sealing his fatal wounds in under 2 seconds. Restored to full strength with a 200% attack multiplier, Vane leaped into the air and cleaved the skeletal dragon in half with a single blow. The boss was cleared thanks to automated retail. 30 seconds after the boss died, the entire Dark Knight squad was politely lined up in front of the vending machine, buying sodas and chips like teenagers at a convenience store break room. Back at headquarters, I was watching the live security camera feed on my tablet while sipping fresh coffee. I didn't even have to leave my desk to farm S-rank cores from the bottom of the earth. 80 million credits collected automatically while I sat in my swivel chair. Automated micro-outposts were pure, unadulterated passive income. The title deed progress bar hit 25%. Ilera managed the automated restock pipeline seamlessly. Whenever a vending machine ran low, a spatial chute delivered fresh stock instantly. Ren continued his sweeping duties with unbroken dedication. Why stop at one dungeon? I tapped the global deployment button. Within an hour, 500 automated vending outposts dropped into every major dungeon, dark zone, and boss chamber on the continent. Every dungeon raid team on Earth was now dependent on Harvey's quick stop. If a guild wanted to clear a dungeon, they bought my potions. I had successfully cornered the underground market. 1 billion credits in daily automated revenue. I leaned back in my leather chair, adjusted my sunglasses, and took a sip of iced tea. The monsters thought they ruled the dungeons, but every floor, every chamber, and every boss room now belonged to Harvey's mart. It took 500 automated dungeon outposts, 20 drive-through lanes, and an airborne skymart, but at 11:58 p.m., the counter finally hit the magical number. 100 trillion credits. The exact buyout price for planet Earth. My finger hovered over the executive buyout button. One tap, and I would transition from a simple convenience store owner to the legal landlord of Earth. The system's backend didn't like corporate takeovers. Before I could press the button, the sky shattered. The system admin entity, the cosmic auditor responsible for enforcing the apocalypse, descended to delete my account. Unlawful accumulation of global capital, the cosmic entity boomed, raising a hand to erase my data file. The apocalypse cannot be purchased. You will be deleted. I took off my employee vest and placed it on my desk. I passed association compliance, I have tax-exempt status, and I have 100 trillion valid credits, I said calmly. You don't get to audit me. The admin fired a deletion beam. I used 9,999 points of expired noodle muscle mass to punch the cosmic entity square in the jaw. Kinetic violence beats digital deletion every single time. I grabbed the cosmic auditor by the throat in midair. My face was an inch from its digital eye. Now, I hissed through my teeth, are you going to accept this valid payment, or do I need to sweep you out of my atmosphere with a broom? I slammed his hand down onto my tablet screen, using his biometric admin signature to authorize the transaction. 100 trillion credits vanished from my balance. The system chime sang out across the entire planet. A golden wave swept across the earth. Red portals closed. Dimensional rifts sealed shut. The system apocalypse was legally evicted from the premises for non-payment of rent. Earth was no longer a survival game, it was privately owned commercial real estate. I didn't destroy the admin entity, I offered him a job as vice president of system operations. He signed the employment contract immediately. Now he manages our global inventory supply lines instead of destroying worlds. With the apocalypse officially over, the remaining monsters were converted into minimum wage retail employees. S-rank trolls were great for heavy lifting, and fire dragons made excellent rotisserie oven operators. Ren and the original traders remained in the dish pit. Their 5 million coin debt was still unpaid. While humanity celebrated the end of the world, Ren was scheduled for pot-scrubbing duty until the year 3026. I opened my landlord ledger. Earth was completely stabilized, profitable, and 100% tax-exempt. But a true businessman never stops expanding. A new button appeared on my tablet menu, Interdimensional Franchise Expansion. I officially promoted Ilera to Chief Operating Officer of Earth Operations. She deserved it, her employee evaluations were flawless. They threw me out of the party because my picnic mat had a 24-hour cooldown. So I built a dimensional convenience store, bought the planet, and turned the apocalypse into a multi-trillion-dollar franchise. Thank you for shopping at Harvey's Mart. Your shift is officially over. Earth was fully monetized. The domestic market was saturated. If I wanted growth, I had to expand cross-dimensionally. I dropped branch number 3 directly into Dimension B99, a realm populated entirely by demonic warlords. The local ruler, Demon Lord Malachar, stormed out of his castle with a flaming war axe, furious that a bright yellow convenience store was ruining his evil Gothic aesthetic. I didn't draw a sword. I pulled out a clipboard and declared myself president of the newly formed Interdimensional Homeowners Association. It was time to introduce suburban municipal terror to hell. I immediately issued 3 citations. Unapproved castle paint, unauthorized floating skulls, and a severe lava leak on the public walkway. The fines totaled 400,000 demon cores. Malachar screeched in outrage and swung his 10-ton flaming war axe at my skull, intent on erasing the HOA before it could collect. I caught the 10-ton axe blade between my thumb and index finger. 9,000 points of physical strength meant a demon lord's ultimate strike was about as heavy as a feather duster. I flicked the blade with my nail. The axe shattered into dust, and the kinetic recoil blew the demon lord backward through his own front gates. 5 minutes later, Malachar was on a ladder painting his dark obsidian fortress a nice, neutral pastel pink to comply with neighborhood aesthetics. He wept softly with every brushstroke. Seeing their supreme overlord painting his castle pink made the rest of the realm extraordinarily polite. The entire demonic army formed a single file line inside branch number 3, buying iced teas and potato chips like school children. 2 billion demon cores collected on day 1. Demonic realms had incredible purchasing power once you established proper municipal authority. I transferred Ren to the Multiverse division to handle lawn care. Watching him push a manual lawnmower across a patch of green turf in the middle of hell was deeply satisfying. I held the first monthly HOA board meeting. 5 Supreme Demon Lords sat awkwardly in cheap plastic lawn chairs, taking diligent notes on municipal waste sorting and noise curfews. Malachar handed over his monthly HOA dues with a deep bow. He even admitted the pastel pink paint made his fortress feel much brighter and more welcoming. Dimension B99 was fully annexed into the HOA network. I pulled up the multiversal registry map. Hundreds of alternate dimensions were waiting for proper retail management. Dimension B99 went from a dark hellscape to a quiet, compliant suburban retail center in under 24 hours. The multiverse was full of scary monsters, but none of them could stand against the terrifying power of the Homeowners Association. 1 billion credits in daily revenue is nice, but purchasing inventory directly from the system's default menu incurred a 30% wholesale fee. To maximize profit, I needed to cut out the middleman and secure a direct, local supplier. I targeted Dimension D01, the Dragon Peak. Home to the celestial gold dragons, who had been hoarding rare magical fruits, high-tier monster cores, and ancient ingredients for 10,000 years without selling a single item. Dragon King Ignis, ruler of the realm, was not pleased. He stood upon his mountain of gold and roared, informing me that dragons do not trade, do not sell, and certainly do not negotiate with humans. Dragons have 2 weaknesses, extreme greed and an absolute lack of culinary innovation. I slid a bowl of ultimate cheesy truffle ramen across the counter. The aromatic steam hit his nostrils with tactical precision. 10,000 years of eating raw meat and dry gold coins had left his palate completely unprepared for processed flavor enhancers and melted cheese. His royal dignity crumbled in a fraction of a second. He inhaled the bowl. The combination of instant noodles, monosodium glutamate, and artificial cheese triggered a spiritual epiphany inside his dragon soul. He wept tears of pure bliss. While he was still in a food coma, I produced the B2B wholesale supply contract. 10,000 cases of instant ramen per month in exchange for exclusive, discounted distribution rights to his entire dragon horde. He signed before the broth even cooled. The supply chain was secured. Automated spatial conveyor belts began draining his ancient treasure vaults, shipping premium ingredients straight to Harvey's Mart processing centers across 3 dimensions. Wholesale costs dropped by 90%. Net profit margins hit 99.8%. Harvey's Mart was now mathematically invincible. We launched the new, Celestial Dragon Fruit Smoothie, back on Earth. Packed with genuine Dragon Horde ingredients, it granted a permanent plus 500 boost to all stats. It sold out in 40 seconds. With supply volume quadrupling, Ren was reassigned from dishwashing to heavy unloading duty at the loading dock. He carried multi-ton dragon scale crates while wearing his pink apron. To cut down on shipping expenses, Dragon King Ignis provided his own Dragon Flight fleet as delivery vehicles. 10 golden celestial dragons flew across the sky wearing giant blue employee vests, hauling yellow freight containers. Ignis became branch number 3's most loyal customer. Every afternoon, the ancient Dragon King sat at a plastic lawn table in his blue VIP lanyard, slurping noodles and reading manga. Raw materials secured, wholesale costs minimized, and distribution automated. Daily net profits hit 10 billion credits. The multiversal supply chain was entirely under my thumb. From an F-rank picnic mat spawning 3 dry rice balls a day, to the supreme owner of a cross-dimensional retail empire. The apocalypse came to destroy humanity, but it ended up creating the greatest capitalist in the multiverse. Welcome to Harvey's Mart, we are open 24/7, forever.